Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. Hopefully, you can hear me okay. I have the camera a little bit further away from me than what I would normally have it. I figured I wanted to try a different setup today, so I'll go ahead and try it. The music playing in the background is Lilith mystical ambient music, dark, relaxing, atmospheric. I can also post a link for that video in the video description as well. I may end up doing that. So I haven't done a video like this in a while. I've posted some music stuff. I've posted some shorter content. But everything has just been, busy. And life happens. And life is full of many different experiences and emotions. There's just a lot to it. This world is a very interesting place right now. And I figured if I was going to have time anytime recently to do a video, it was going to be today. I think today is the day to do it. There are a few different things I wanted to talk about, but I don't really have any notes written. I don't have anything planned other than there's about three different things I want to hit on, different topics I want to discuss in the video. You know what? Maybe I will draw the camera just a little bit closer. That way I know that the, it's picking up the audio. You can get my voice just fine and hear that. So thank you all for being here and watching this video. If you're here, for a lot of this stuff, when it comes to esotericism, when it comes to studying different things, I kind of really had to take a step back for a while. A lot of this material, even just studying things, reading about things, can be very powerful. And that kind of takes me right to the first topic that I wanted to discuss, and that is the power of occult books, of occult literature. These books, whether it's spells, rituals, formula, sigils, whatever it may be, it's all very powerful stuff. And the person who is just playfully curious, in the sense that they're just wanting to kind of mess around with it just to see if it actually works or if it has validity. If you mess around too much, you don't want to do that. This stuff is very real. The power that exists within these forces, whether it be angelic or demonic, or whatever type of energy you're connecting with within the universe, all of these things, they're all a part of us. We're all connected. At the end of the day, it is all one. But at the same time, we're physical human beings here, living a physical existence right now. Our human vessels can really only handle so much, at a time, and that's different for everybody. Everybody's path is going to be different. Even if you follow a prescribed, formula of things to do, or a curriculum of things to do, the results of that formula or those formulas and that curriculum will be different for each individual person. So you kind of want to get away from following any one person completely. There's a lot of great people out there. There's a lot of great teachers out there that are, way better than me. They just have the experience. they have that, a lot more experience. And I've been studying, let's see, when did I actually start studying? I would say I didn't really start studying esoteric stuff, like real esoteric stuff, until closer to around like 2014. And then really started getting into it probably more around, I want to say like 2015. I think I have my years right. It's 2025 now. That's pretty crazy. Time is, a lot of people have noticed intuitively that they think that time has been speeding up. But to get back at the topic at hand, I wanted to talk about the power of these books, of these sigils. And an experience that I had, I want to say this happened like 3 years ago, roughly now, maybe not quite that long ago, but it's been a minute. I read through pretty much the entire, I probably have it right behind me actually. Somewhere on this shelf. Yes, this one. The 3 books of Solomon. So it has the Testament of Solomon, and then it has the greater and the lesser keys. So I bought this book a while back actually, and then I read this book. I read through it, pretty much all of it. I don't know that I read it every single page, but I read like 90% of what's in there. And it was shortly after that, I remember I was so sick. People, sometimes you get sick every a couple times a year or so, depending on who you are. You'll have some kind of physical ailment or such. But usually there's very few that stand out to you. And this is one that really stood out to me. I'll never forget this. It was the worst headache I'd ever had. The headache was so bad that I could not even control my thoughts anymore. It was awful. It was actually like torture. And I almost wonder if that process is from, there's all kinds of sigils in this book. There's all kinds of it's a lot of energy in these books. These grimoires, they're basically alive, with knowledge and spiritual energy. And it's almost like some of these books should almost be avoided altogether by the casual reader, like the person who's just interested in learning about philosophy, or maybe interested in learning about, which mostly what I am when it comes to, esoteric stuff. I'm mostly a researcher. Like there are people out there who are like real practitioners, as in they delve, all the way into this stuff. Like it's actually a lifestyle for them. Like that's what they do. That's their thing. There's a big difference between somebody who's like that and then somebody who's more of like a researcher, or I'm not technically a scholar, but I've read a lot of information and enough that like I'm able to kind of connect the dots between all the different research that I do. And then I can, if I don't know the answer to something, I usually know where to look, or I can point somebody in the right direction. But yeah, I've just read so much material at this point, I can kind of pick out also, for the most part, with what may be, not as important, or may not be completely factual compared to some of the other stuff. That just comes with time. That comes with like the more research you do, the more you'll be able to kind of like discern what's bullcrap and what's not bullcrap, if that makes sense. So yeah, that experience with reading the Solomon book and then getting sick very, very shortly after was an interesting coincidence. I also noticed that around the year 2022, around that time frame, I started reading a lot of literature, specifically this book, Kabbalah, and Goetic Magic by Thomas Carlson. One of the most interesting books I've ever read. I just love how deep the knowledge is, because Kabbalistically, it kind of talks about things that other books won't talk about. And there's some other, books too. This one's really great, actually. I highly recommend if you're into working with denser energies, if left-hand path is more your thing. Draconian Ritual book, this is amazing as well. So both of those books, if you're into the darker side of things, if you're into learning about demons and how Klipothic energies work and all of that sort of thing, I recommend those books. But like I said before, these books are really powerful. And when I started reading Thomas Carlson's book, 3 years ago, back in 2022, some really weird things started to happen. There was actually a really close friend of ours that we lost right around that time. And don't get the wrong idea. You don't want to fall into the trap of superstition where you're like, oh, like an item's cursed or it's evil and it's like doing this thing to me. It's a lot more likely, probably not the case. It's more than likely that, for me anyway, I just happened to come across this knowledge when I needed it, and there was a correspondence there. I was learning about darker energies and the darker components of the universe and things of that nature. As these life experiences, actually the hardest life experiences that I've experienced to date, I would say the last 2 years have been the roughest. So a lot of this stuff is manifesting. It's almost like my soul is finding the information, and I'm sure this will happen, anyone who's kind of following the spirit or following the path, or, depending on where you're at, everyone's at different places in their path, no matter what path they're on, but you'll always kind of be guided by information or knowledge. You'll know that it's coming from your higher self. And a lot of the times your higher self will align you with certain literatures, or certain literature or books that are kind of going to almost energetically prepare you for what's coming. It's not so much that it's evil or it's bad or it's causing this thing. A lot of people get that wrong with the denser energies, the demonic energies. It's almost just like they just play a role and they just kind of do what they do. But there's intelligence behind it too. I don't think it's mechanical. It's all conscious. So the universe itself is very conscious, as we know. The first Hermetic principle, right? The law of mentalism. And I think we can always come back to Hermetics as a good foundation for all of this knowledge. I think Hermetics, the 7 Hermetic principles, is a really good foundation. I think if you study Freemasonry, even from a non-initiate perspective, you don't have to be a part of Freemasonry to research about it. But that's another good foundation to just understand that knowledge. And then you can kind of move on to Golden Dawn type stuff. And then, it seems like the Tree of Death stuff is the most advanced type stuff. The Draconian stuff, the Tree of Death. A lot of this, the energies are just the hardest to deal with. And a lot of what the darker aspect of things, the Qliphoth and all of that represents, it's emotions. That's why it's the more feminine path. The dark tree is the more feminine, receptive, feeling path. It's it's literally feeling everything, and feeling everything and more than what you thought you could feel. There's just so much that's within you that's been pressed or covered up over time. We're all programmed, and we shove things to the side and we push things down, and we kind of try to limit ourselves in a lot of ways. It's not always a bad thing. We have to know when to be conservative in a lot of aspects. Being conservative with your energy and making calculated moves is actually going to make you more of a master player on the chessboard, just to use a metaphor. You're going to learn mastery over self a lot better that way. But anyway, me and my ramblings. But I'm sure you can all understand where I'm coming from that. But yeah, these books are powerful. And when you read them, I would not just... What I used to do a lot of the times is I would be in groups or environments of people where there's a lot of activity going on, and I'd be the only one who's kind of just reading to myself. I'd have my book maybe on a PDF on my phone or something, but I kind of recommend not even doing that. It's almost like you want to respect the energy of what's in the book. I don't know if I'm wording this right. You want to respect the energy enough that you're not just simply trying to download the information in a setting that's not that's so discordant that, well, what you could do is you could also just, if everyone's just kind of expending their energy and they're not really conscious of that energy, you could use that energy yourself. There's certain energetic sciences, like vampirism and things like that, where you can kind of take ambient energy from people. It's not necessarily that you're sucking them dry, but a lot of people just put energy out there and they're not aware that they don't think about actions before they take them, as much as the person who kind of knows that there's so much more behind the reality than what we see. That's why we often think about maybe what our actions are, but a lot of people don't. There's just energy always radiating from them, and it's like wasted energy. So you could almost take that energy for yourself in a situation like that, where you're trying to read a book in a social setting. But for the most part, yeah, you really want to respect this information and this knowledge, especially the deeper the knowledge goes. And it seems to be I don't think there should be reverence over one tradition or the other. It's not like the light side is better than the dark side. See, that's something we're kind of like programmed to be about. Like, we want, like, there's this side or this side, but really the ultimate power comes from you being able to utilize both the light and the dark. It's going to be a culmination of both. If any of you are Star Wars fans, I know I've said this before, but Darth Revan, he's probably the most interesting Star Wars character. But he is a character who utilizes both light and darkness. He's been like down the darkest, learned the deepest secrets, of what darkness has to teach, but he also has learned the lighter aspects of the Force as well, to gain complete mastery over it. So yeah, there were just a lot of crazy things that started happening, I noticed, like, in my life when I started reading this material. And like I said, I'm not going to be like typically, like a Christian or somebody that's, more religiously based would be like, oh, that's just demonic, it's evil, it's just going to bring about chaos or ruin or bad things. But really, these things are here to teach us things. And a lot of the times these energies will show up if something's not right. It's almost like the negative energy will show up to bring about a balance. I've noticed where there's a lot of like false positivity, this can happen. Or if there's just something that's not meant for you, and these energies are always trying to evolve you, they're trying to grow you, they're trying to make you a better version of your own self. It's not really about being better than other people. I know that's something I've reiterated on my channel before. Yeah, but basically, if something's not real, if it's an illusion, it's going to be shattered. And even if it is real, the realness of it will be tested. And that's kind of what these energies, these spirits do. They test you. Before I get to the third point of this video, before I forget, I've talked about the power of these books. They're portals. I had a friend who actually had I believe it was a Hecate book, and it actually had a fae, like a fairy, like project itself out of the book into her third eye. So I thought that was really interesting. So yeah, these books, they are like portals in and of themselves. They're gateways. So you have to be really careful about what portals and what gateways you're opening, not only in the world, but like within your own consciousness. As within, so without. So always keep that Hermetic principle in mind. Okay, so I know for a while there, I was talking about not doing the LBRP as much, the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Pentagram, for those of you who are familiar with it. For those of you who are not familiar with what that is, I'm surprised you've made it through this video to this point so far anyway, but I mean, if you don't know what that is, you should probably go look that up, because I'm just going to assume when I make these videos, there's a lot of prerequisite knowledge that I don't really have the time to cover, that I'm just assuming that people that already follow this channel kind of know. There's a lot of YouTube channels who cover the basics of a lot of this stuff, in a lot more detail than I do, even though I do cover it in different a lot of these topics I cover in different videos on my channel. But yeah, the LBRP, you know, it's, some people just do away with it altogether, and then other people just kind of use it as needed, and that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, if I really feel like I need to use it, I will use it. And it's not that you're necessarily banishing energies in the traditional sense, but I think it's Liam Christopher Thomas. He does a really good video on the LBRP, like what the LBRP actually is. But what you're basically doing is you're banishing a lot of these parts of yourself out into the world around you to be dealt with. So you're basically projecting the negativity out to be manifested in front of you in your everyday reality so that you can then deal with it. So it is an act of purification, it is an act of banishing, but you're having to actually work through it. It's not that you're just pushing your problems away. It's that the things that are discordant within your own body, think of alchemy, like turning lead into gold. You're removing all these component parts so that you can like view them and look at them, and then figure out how to work with them, essentially. So I didn't really realize that that's what that was when I first started practicing, and a lot of people don't talk about that. Well, there's not many people who do at all. Liam's one of the only ones. There are others. But another thing that the LBRP and a lot of these other ceremonies or rituals do, like the LIRP, the Lesser Banishing Ritual of the Hexagram, LVX, all of those sorts of things, even though they're considered right-hand path operations, what they do is they will light you up on the astral plane and can easily attract lower entities. Not only, you know, in the world of darker entities, there are entities which are more, like we could think of Lucifer or Lilith as dark entities, but they're a lot more intelligent and a lot more powerful and a lot more, like, you could call them like more key aspects of creation than, say, like just some lowly parasitic thing that's like trying to attach you to you. You know, so when you light up on the astral plane, you're going to attract not only the attention of higher order type beings, but also just all kinds of things. And that's something they don't really talk about. So yeah, when you're all lit up in that astral body, and you know you're projecting your consciousness up to Kether above, or when you're doing the Kabbalistic cross, you can even project further, like I've done, and go all the way to Ein Sof. Or really, if you want to pull from limitless potentiality itself, Ein. But really, Kether is like, you know, that's typically where you see the white glow above you and you pull that energy down. But when you do these things, you're basically lighting yourself up, and it's like a moth to a flame, essentially. Like, all these different entities can now be aware of you. And so it's almost like once you start this type of work, you have to be a lot more conscious about your energy and just like your health and a lot of different things. There's a lot of weird things that can start to happen. And so you just need to be conscious of that. And I think that was something that happened to me. There's definitely like more denser, more earthy, carnal-based energies that I resonated with, and you know, a lot of these energies probably saw that I was like on a path or something, maybe. But what you really have to do is you have to take all of these things into account. It's not just about trying to ascend and become the light and like rise above. You're really trying to pull the influences from the below and the above, not only in the universe, but within yourself, to become a more holy person. Not holy as in like super righteous or above everyone and everything else, but holy as in the sense that you're embodying, you know, aspects of both light and dark. I think that's really important. But yeah, there's just a lot of weird things you can attract once you start doing like the LBRP and stuff like that. So if you stop doing it for a while and you used to do it a lot, because that's kind of what happened to me, I did notice there was a lot of weird stuff that started. I kind of like changed directions in my life there for a while. I was very much, I was doing like ritual every single day, like from, I want to say from like 2015, midway through 2015 to almost like 2019, like right in that time frame was probably when I was the most, I want to say, what is the word I'm looking for? I hate when that happens, when I'm trying to think of a word and I can't. Discipline. When I had the most discipline. See, I'm lacking discipline in my mind because I couldn't find that word in my brain. Discipline. So yeah, it's pretty much the second point I wanted to make in this video was that fact that yeah, you might attract some really weird stuff when you start working with the LBRP. It's not just about becoming a being of light and woohoo ascending. It's shadow work too. It's shadow work as well. Like, and you're gonna end up working with darker energies because of you're working with the light. You really kind of have to almost work with both. Like, if you work with one, you're, especially if you're trying to, you know, work with angels and be a light body and all that stuff, when you come back down to earth, when you come back down to Malkuth, you know, there's a lot of things that are going to try to tempt you. They're going to try to take you off that path. And see, we need to not be so uptight and so righteous minded that we're like, oh, we're so pure and we're so evolved human beings that we just can't be bothered with anyone or anything. Like, that's one extreme, I feel like. And then the other extreme is like just allowing yourself to be so absorbed by whatever it is, you know, money, greed, physical things of the world, and like losing your spirit in it all, like letting carnal lusts completely take over to the point where you're not even like there's no consciousness involved with it anymore. It's like you become a slave to it, and what happens is your spirit gets trapped, your spirit gets shelled, right? So it doesn't matter like how righteous you think you are, we all have like things that are shelled within us. And I think that's why it's so important to work with these denser energies, at least to some degree, especially if you're somebody who's already kind of started on the path of like LBRP and things of that nature. So I think that pretty much, I mean, I could go on about that subject, but I think that pretty much wraps that up. Premature Kundalini awakenings is another thing that happens a lot. Can happen in a lot of ways. Through meditation, even just through breathing exercises, you could accidentally like stimulate that within your, you know, within that area, within the spine, and activate certain things. There's just lots of different ways. Psychedelic drugs, different substances, you know, can unknowingly activate that. And a lot of people will not even know what's going on. But yeah, Kundalini, and that's something that I've somewhat worked with. I think I've actually caused some damage to it in my past, and that's probably why I have some things about my own medical history that's kind of crazy. I had hernia surgery years ago. I won't get into that in this video. Some of you know about it, and sometimes it gets worse than I even will talk about. Like, those are things we kind of keep to ourselves, you know. And you know, sometimes you just got to keep on trucking away. But usually it's your body's way of intelligently telling you that something is up, and it's not that it's trying to punish you or anything like that. Universal Mastery, Jeremiah, he's not Universal Mastery anymore, I forgot. His channel is Jeremiah Schwartz now, but he will talk about that a lot, that if there's like pain in your body, it's usually, or if there's a negative thought or something, a lot of the times it's protective mechanisms which are actually in place they're actually there to try and help you, to keep you safe, even though they might be hurting you. It's not that those things within your body are like trying to punish you. Our bodies are very intelligent, so they're trying to tell us. They're trying to talk to us all the time. And a lot of us today in the modern world, everything is so rush, 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 go, 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 that we don't really have that time to sit with ourselves and process things, and really just, I think a lot of the time the key to immortality, maybe not indefinite immortality, but is a really good balance between being able to keep your body still and be in that calm, peaceful environment, and then the other half is to be a physical being that is strong, that has power, that doesn't get overly tired through physical endeavors and things of that nature. So if you can really have both, body, mind, and spirit, that's the Trinity. That's the Trinity of your body, and to keep balance or equilibrium between all of those is really important. So I guess the third and final thing I wanted to talk about was, I had started studying, very intrigued by Asenath Masons, and I really apologize if I'm pronouncing her name wrong. I don't know if it's Asenath or Asenath Mason. Very awesome, very unique name, very awesome name. I like it though. The Draconian opening ritual is something that I've been kind of taking a look at for a long time. And for whatever reason, I had worked with sigils of Lilith before. I've done videos on that. I've worked with Lucifer's sigil a little bit. And remember what I said about these rituals, these sigils, they're portals, they're gateways. They are very powerful. Just a sigil and like some, especially if you find ambient tones or isochronic tones that match the sigils, they do have those on YouTube. Very, very powerful. It will open your consciousness to where you are connecting with the energy. So, if you do decide to do that, you want to be very careful. But there's different spirits within this draconian opening ritual. And it's a beautiful ceremony. I actually really like the way it's set up. And just really the aesthetic of a lot of it. Even though that's not what the essence of any of this stuff is, really a lot of this type of work is, it's really like clearing out your system, and it's trauma work. It's basically clearing out all the crud within yourself that's keeping you from your true self, your we could almost say your unadulterated, like primal state of being. Things that are getting in the way of that, the things that are holding you back from your true self, that's what a lot of those things work with. And like activating the Kundalini, working with a lot of those things, it's very powerful stuff. And I have a friend that I've been talking to, and this is stuff that I'm very baby step walking towards or working towards. This isn't stuff that I'm just like, yes, I am curious about it, but I also understand the seriousness of what these energies imply. And something we always want to have for whatever energy it is, angelic, demonic, it doesn't matter. Respect. You really want to have respect. Not a reverence from the point of like you're worshiping them, but like that you appreciate them. That not only are these things representing a part of yourself, it's internal, but it's also external. It also represents a force that exists within nature and within yourself. So really, if you disrespect them, ultimately you're disrespecting yourself. But these are also very powerful and potentially destructive energies. That isn't to say that they're like out to get you or out to destroy you. I'm sure maybe there are certain energies that do function in that way. But from what I've experienced, these energies just seem to be super intelligent. And as long as you are stating, what your intentions are, like for me, the last energy that I worked with intensely was this summer, and that's probably what I may even name the video after. The energy of Asmodeus was one of the entities, one of the archetypes of energy which is represented or shown, talked about in the Draconian opening ritual. And I was like, I've read about this energy for a long time. I've always been interested in it. I know that this energy rules over lust. Asmodeus is the demon, the daemon of lust, of fire, the element of fire, specifically connected with Golokab on the Tree of Death. And, you know, I basically connected with the energy, and I was very straightforward and, you know, clear about, hey, I made a conscious connection and said, hey, you can obviously see where I'm at. You have more perception than I do. You're a higher dimensional intelligence, even though you are connected to me and the universe as a whole. You can obviously see where I'm at in my own development and my own life and the things that I'm struggling with. You know, I'm only wanting to connect so much as I'm able to, as my body is able to, you know, take. I'm not asking for anything necessarily. All I'm wanting to do is just connect with your energy and just understand it. Understand this energy a bit. And basically that's all I did. I was just very genuine, and you want to be pretty earnest, you know, and sincere, you know, with the spirits. You want to be as sincere as you possibly can and respectful as you can possibly be. And then once you connect with the energy, things can get interesting. Yeah, it really just depends on what you are maybe trying to manifest. But for me, I'm not like, none of this is to like get stuff. So I'm not like doing this to get money or to get a job or to get a partner. It's not about attaining things in the material realm. It's always been about learning more about myself. So I'm not trying to ask them for things. I'm not trying to, you know, maybe there'd be a point where I would get advanced enough in my practices, I could, you know, maybe ask for things, but there would definitely have to be an understanding of how that exchange works. But I'm just not to that point. I have not developed enough of a rapport with a lot of these energies to really do things of that nature. But basically just wanted to connect with the energy and see what the energy was like. And a lot of these experiences, I wish I would have written down some stuff because they are very hard to explain, but it's definitely, there's no denying it. It's like, it's not subtle usually. It's, if you try to like close your eyes, and even like if you're trying to go to bed, it's not a good time to like work with a lot of these types of energies. You'll get visualizations, and not just visualizations maybe of the entity itself, which that did happen for me. In this case for me, this energy, Asmodeus, almost showed up like it reminds me a lot of, if you've seen the movie Alien, I want to say it's like the alien on the cover of that movie. So let me double check real quick. Okay, yeah. Actually, that's... what I experienced in my, you know, in my spiritual vision, if you want to call it that, third eye, or just, you know, in my vision. Something very similar to that. Very similar looking to that. But the thing that is different, I don't know if you could see that or not, but almost reminds you of like an elite from the Halo games, if you played the Halo games. But one of the things that really stood out to me was like a giant like underbite or overbite that this thing had. And that was the only moment that I got the sense that like that it was almost as if it was physically there. The other times, the other ways that it's showing up in my vision is more like of an astral vision type thing. Whereas this was more like physical. It was almost like right there, and I was like, whoa. But it didn't scare me. I can see how it would be very easy for a person to get scared, like overwhelmed really easily with some of these energies. I can definitely understand that. But that's one thing you want to keep in mind, is just stay calm and know that it's a part of the process. And once, if you're gonna be curious enough and daring enough to work with these energies in the first place, don't fear it when it comes. Don't be scared. Just see what it's wanting to show you. Because if you're able to be receptive, if you're able to kind of just sit back and see what they want to show you, it's not that scary. It's not usually that bad. Now, like I said, I'm totally a beginner in this. This is me opening up a lot, by the way, in this video, but I think that people could probably learn something from some of the things I'm talking about, I hope, or hopefully some of this resonates with others. So that's the main thing I'm hoping, is that you can learn something from this, and that you're like, hey, I get where he's coming from. Like, I can really relate to that. I can really relate to that. So that's kind of what I'm hoping this video does for some people. Or maybe it's answering some questions that you were, curious about. I don't know. So, but yeah, the energy was it was pretty powerful. Anytime you work with a sigil, and especially if you add the tones of that sigil alongside of it, it's going to be extra super powerful. There's actually an illustration. I'm pretty sure there's an illustration of Asmodeus in this book, Tree of Qliphoth, as well, that's very, very much like what this energy can manifest as. Yeah, there is almost like a requirement to not be super scared of, just because something seems darker. Yeah, there it is. That one right there. It's very much, yeah, that was one of the ways that the energy showed up. Oops. There's also kind of a version where I think he's got 3 heads or something, and that one was not, that visualization was not as present, or was not as prominent, I'm sorry. Yeah, almost like the head of a bull and a goat, and there's a bunch of heads on it. That's a different depiction of this energy. But yeah, just it was a very interesting experience. And it's an experience that, honestly, it was powerful enough, and I had enough respect for the energy. I didn't even feel like I wanted to talk about it for a while. Like I said, I think this happened back in June or July. And I noticed that after this experience, the summer actually was much warmer, it felt like to me, than usual. And Asmodeus just so happens to be the daemon of fire, so I found that to be very interesting, an interesting correspondence. So in a way, it was like this Summer of Asmodeus. But yeah, these, just one action, one motion, one movement can change the whole. See, as we're moving, as we're talking, the universe is like clockwork. It's moving, and as we push into things, energy all around us is kind of being affected. So to have that in mind, just small things can make a big impact, I guess, is all I wanted to say in that regard. An interesting thing that happened too, the day before the Pope that just passed away, what was that, was that about 3 months ago or so? Maybe it's been longer than that. I was meditating the night before that happened on a reverse pentagram. I thought that was a really interesting, I don't know if that's a synchronicity or just a correspondence or not, but just literally just was meditating on that symbol and what that symbol intrinsically represented, basically. What it represents at its core, not just the stereotypes and labels that have been, put on it. Same with just a normal pentagram, like an upright pentagram. It's not that the upright one's good and the down one's evil. It's the down one's much more physical. It's divinity going down towards earth, down towards the material. You are digging into the soil, into the dirt, into the depths of your own being to find divinity. Whereas the upright pentagram symbolizes you ascending towards source, towards the divine. So really, this journey of self is not one or the other. It's not just light or dark. I don't know why there's still like this idea that it's perpetuated in even still today, I guess, in certain mystery schools and stuff, of one being better than the other, or the light must overcome the darkness. Because from what I understand, the light was actually born from darkness, if I'm not mistaken. Because there was no thing, right? There was pure... Mainly, P. Hall refers to the Ayin as the vacuum of pure spirit. So there's nothing but pure spirit in there. I don't know, that would probably be beyond any sense of light or dark. But even in the Bible, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. But see, it also says right there in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So it's like, bam, bam. But really, instead of looking at it as a physical heaven and earth, look at it as polarities. Masculine, feminine, celestial, material, celestial, infernal. However you want to look at it. There's so many different ways to look at the principle of gender and the principle of like polarity and duality and the nuances of all these things. So it just goes on and on and on. So, alrighty, I think that is all that I wanted to cover in this video specifically. There's a lot more that I could talk about. There's a lot more that I want to say, but I think for the purposes of this video specifically, and what I wanted to convey in this message, I think this pretty much wraps it up. So I hope that you got some value from this. Like, I'm really glad that I actually did decide to take the time to make this video. I'm going to feel a lot better the rest of the day about this, knowing that I actually took the time to do it finally. And yeah, life's just been busy, and we all have, I'm sure, good days. There's days that like are a breeze and I'm very much in the moment and very much able to be there, and then there's other days, like earlier today, I was just struggling mentally. Like some days it's like, man, I just don't want to be here, and that's just, it comes from a lot of things. For me, it comes from maybe not totally following my passions and my intuitions and passions earlier in life. But then again, I'm also really thankful for where I'm at. I could be in a much worse state than what I am. I don't know that I could really be in a much better state than what I currently am. Even if I had, quote unquote, the things that I think I would want. See, that's the thing that gets us in trouble, is the strivings towards things. We're always like, there's things that we think we want, but like once we get it, or once we've attained it, we're almost just like tricked, or we realize it was a trick all along, and that what we really wanted all along was within, right? So trying to work more and more on that self, so that we can have that satisfaction within first, and that way we're not clinging or desiring so many things from the physical world. Of course, we're going to have desire. We need motivation. We need drive. But at the same time, it's also within this whole journey. All of this up until now has been you. You're the one perceiving it. You're the one who's ever even perceived of what a god or a demon or an angel or any of this stuff is. We've been creating this all along. So, alrighty. I think that's message enough for today. So, Peace and blessings, everyone. And until next time, keep it cool.